So I'm just giving an update on the first day of the Indigenous Environmental Movement's 18th Conference on Protecting Mother Nature, or Mother Earth. And so this is in Cherokee, North Carolina, on the reservation. And Carrie and I arrived at the site this morning at 6 for the lighting of the sacred fire. This is really pretty cool because the embers were from the last conference was in 2018 in Washington State, and so a family cared for the embers, and the whole family came here and some other folks, and they were using the fire starting method from Washington State, which is rubbing sticks together. It's not having flint, and so that started at 6. Yeah, the fire was officially started at 10:30, and they said the problem was that they were not used to this type of humidity at all, and their tools were not used to it. But it was an opportunity for young ones to learn the rituals and why they do what they do. At the same time, the place was really interesting because we had participants here from the Amazon in Brazil, people from Colombia, the Arctic Circle, Alaska, the South Pacific Islands, and so people from all over Turtle Island. And so it's a great event. The plenary kind of ran long, but that's because they're organizing things, and it's very fluid. The breakfast and the lunch here were fantastic. If you're familiar with Slow Food USA and that movement of using real foods and whole foods and cooking slowly but nutritiously, that's really kind of what this was, with the emphasis on also traditional indigenous foods. It was wonderful. This afternoon, there are breakout sessions. I didn't go to the first one. I walked around and took some pictures. The second one I hope to go to will be on water protection and ethics. And then tonight there'll be dinner again here, and then there will be purification. There's a smoke lodge, and then after that a dance. And so that's the first of 4 days. It's jam-packed. 900 people are registered. People are camping all over the place here. We're staying at an Airbnb, but it's a great event that takes indigenous rights and protecting the earth extremely seriously and effectively. And we hopefully are getting our press credentials tomorrow as well, so I can interview participants and lectures. But we're in a beautiful setting. Most of the people are camping, and we're surrounded by mountains and elk. And tomorrow morning at 6 in the morning, we'll get up and participate in the sacred fire, which will not be filmed, but we'll keep you abreast of what's happening in terms of environmental activism from First Nation peoples from all over Turtle Island. One of the first people we met was from Alaska. Another person that I met was one of the professors in the course I took with the First Nations University of Canada. So looking forward to an exciting 4 days. Take care.
There's an elk taking back his land by attacking this tent. Nature truly is healing itself.
I do a little focus on the diversity and inclusion that makes up this conference. And so we have people from the Amazon basin and other countries in South America. We have folks from the desert, all over Turtle Island and Alaska. But we also had people leading us in prayer from uh, New Zealand and other Pacific islands. And so lots of diversity that way. There are also other diversities. So there is a teepee that I keep showing you that's colored. That's a meeting place for two-spirit people. And there's also a sweat that is for two-spirit people, and then people who are maybe not native but transgender and allies in supporting this movement. And so lots of inclusion, acceptance, non-judgment, and support. So it's a really cool place to be. Take care. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
Recognize just and acknowledge and thank all of my fellow speakers just for the integrity, and to thank IEM for pulling this forum together. As somebody who's involved on the ground at home in opposing carbon markets, which is often discussions with our own elders and our own leaders, I can't overstate what it means for my heart to listen to the messages. Excuse me, it's emotional. Just to listen to the messages that are being voiced today from the people holding the positions that you are. It's very hard to drive some of these discussions at home on the ground. So every time I hear you protect the sacredness of our Mother Earth, prioritize her sacredness, and hold this discussion with such integrity, it just fills me with joy and gives me energy to continue the discussions that we need to have at home. So thank you. Tēnā koutou. This year marks 100 years since our people Māori first engaged in transnational forums of colonisers, and it was at the League of Nations in 1924, 1 year after Descahe had first gone there, that our elder Wiremu Tahupōtiki Rātana went to the League of Nations to say, we are a nation. And he presented a petition with tens of thousands of signatures. I got the number wrong earlier today. It was actually 30,000 Māori signatures calling for the so-called New Zealand government to honour Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And I want to mention that because those were 30,000 signatures at a time when there were only just over 50,000 Māori in existence. We were at our lowest population count at that time because of disease and colonisation. So that accounted for over 95% of our population. We didn't even have cars. Most of our nation didn't have roads. The effort that it took to get those tens of thousands of signatures on that petition to take to the League of Nations, to tell them that we expect our treaty to be honoured and respected, is an incredible effort. And for me to think that 100 years later, we're back here again with the greatest assault upon our treaty that we've seen in our history and our known and spoken history since the treaty came into existence in 1840. Where our New Zealand, so-called New Zealand government is this week debating the Treaty Principles Bill. The Treaty Principles Bill is proposed legislation that will reinterpret our treaty without our consent. Unilaterally, the Crown will unilaterally reinterpret our treaty without our consent. And they have literally proposed that sovereignty belongs to all peoples. To take the sovereignty promised to our people in our treaty and give that to all peoples. And so, to think that this is still the struggle, and in fact it's got worse after 100 years, really makes me think about how within these systems, within these colonially crafted systems that are created by colonial forces and still dominated by colonial forces, how do we protect the incredible integrity and dignity of the messages that our Indigenous leaders have in that space?
Tem mudado muito a relação dos povos indígenas. Tem tido uma grande separação entre as lideranças indígenas por meio dessa corrupção. Lideranças que sempre estiveram à frente do movimento, na luta, junto coletivamente, hoje a maioria foram cooptados pelo sistema de governo. No meu estado, pessoas, amigos, irmãos de luta, que foram cooptados hoje para estar junto com o governo. Isso faz uma diferença muito grande para o enfraquecimento da luta dos povos indígenas e também enfraquece a luta pela perda, fortalece a perda de direito nosso, seja local, seja a nível nacional.
So a corollary of this assimilation model implemented by governments like Brazil has very adverse impacts for us. And currently we're seeing that one of the adverse impacts of the corruption and strategic forced assimilation of Indigenous peoples is the creation of a terrible rift, a terrible division amongst Indigenous leaders who have been at the front lines in our struggles for many years. I'm talking about the systematic co-optation of brothers and sisters and friends of mine who have a history as distinguished leaders of Indigenous peoples who unfortunately now have been co-opted by the government. This is weakening our struggle and it's weakening our ability to defend Mother Earth and life.
Is this on? I say greetings to the ancestors of this land. You see, each time you walk into somebody's house, you must acknowledge that blood memory. And what Tom is talking about, and what I really appreciate, each one of my brothers and sisters, and like my daughters and my sons, my grandchildren, right? We call us our universal family. And it's been an honor to walk in this space as I learned. Because when I first entered this space, I entered it at the UN within the women's section in the February because there was no Indigenous women there and we had to bring our voices forward. I have some relatives here. I think, I don't know, Betty, are you here, Betty Lyons? In the Onondaga group? You know, when I first got there, Muriel and all the Onondaga people there embraced me. But I went into that arena not with Indigenous people. I needed to go in there and hear. I went in there just as a woman. But what I heard and how they treated me brought real sorrow to my face, because I knew they loved using the word Indigenous, but they did not like being in our presence. And I found that out by them continually telling me to go put my little outfit on. Well, I sat with that for a while because I knew we had to have voices into the April platform. And we were trying to do our best to get people there because we had to hear and spread the words at that particular time, because myself, even being as young as I am, we said that word old, yeah, mature, right? And wait a minute, before I get going here, I want to first apologize for having the best seat in the house, air conditioning, right? So, to hurry this up, what happened within a lot of the arenas and that there, we still had to step back because our voices were bringing our community concerns forward, and yet we still have other brothers and sisters throughout the globe that weren't getting their chance. So we put a call out to the world, and we were invited. It was invited by my Inuit brother to Greenland. We were invited all over the planet to sit amongst their lands, not to be in hotels, but to be in the grounds that we're here. To get to know their food systems, their air systems, their water systems, their plant life, everything. We sat amongst them. And when we came back, we still walked into the arenas and the stuff. And one particular time when I did walk back into the arenas, because I am from that era of the beginning of the American Indian movement. I am from that beginning of the struggles and the stuff from Line 3 that just didn't happen a few years ago. That planning was well before 1968. That first line that was put through our territories when our tribes at that particular time were just dirt poor. And when I mean that, that's how they described it. But to us Anishinaabes, we were just rich within family and everything. But that was slowly manipulated prior to 1968 by the dismantlement of families. So we had hard times ahead of us. The burdens that we carried, and many of you know who I am. I'm a Anishinaabe, but I'm a Baylan. I am part of that order of just being normal, just appreciating the values of those four elements. The values of being a caretaker. Because you see, we all have our stories of entrance. We particularly believe we come from the stars. Our spirit enters the womb and the pools of our mother. The first introduction is water, the downloading of that blood memory, and then coming out, taking that first breath of air and feeling that fire, and then planting our feet on earth and nourishing it. And a place we're going to call home for a very, very brief time. Very brief time. And within this arena and this teachings and this guidance of who we were to be, that title said caretaker. It did not say landlord. But we knew within those arenas of discussion, all those seers had seen what was coming beforehand. And it wasn't so much we were warned, we were taught how we would maneuver through it, because we would survive these trying times if we stuck to the blood memory and the knowledge of who we are as original caretakers.
This is Lickstone Ridge, and Carrie and I are ending the night taking a drive through the Great Smoky Mountains. So let me just give you a catch up about last night. So last night they had a dance, and we didn't go to that, even though I love drumming and dancing. And then they had sweat lodges for women, and then men, and we didn't go to that. The men's ended at 12:30, and the guys then jumped into the river. I must have felt great crawling into their tents. I couldn't figure out why I was so tired and didn't want to go to any of these events until I realized that Carrie and I had both gotten up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the sunrise service. So we're meeting lots of great people, having fantastic food, seeing four-legged and two-winged all over the place, and learning a whole lot about tribal lands, tribal desecrations by corporations, and plans to help protect Mother Earth. Take care. Okay, so I'm tired, really tired, but I want to make sure that I did a roundup for the third day of the Protecting Mother Earth conference. The day started with a plenary session of Indigenous leaders who had worked with the United Nations in multiple capacities for multiple decades, most for 40 years, some longer. And they spoke of the frustration of looking like they were complicit in bad decisions if they were part of it, but also knowing that they would not be there to tell their side or to advocate or to try to stop processes if they weren't there. And so they see it as education, advocacy, protection of sovereign rights, but also of Mother Earth. The speakers had a range of experience. There were males and females there. There were representatives from Brazil, New Zealand, and Minnesota, Canada. And so it was powerful. It was an eye-opener. And at the end, it was a loud, standing ovation of gratitude for all of the hard work. After lunch, I interviewed, and one of the people I interviewed was Mary Lyons. The day before, I had an hour conversation with her, which was extremely special. I met Mary first in the 2015 Parliament of the World's Religion in Salt Lake City, and then again met with her last year, 2023, at the Parliament of the World's Religion in Chicago. Mary is one of the original 13 great-grandmothers. This is a group of Indigenous women who are wisdom keepers and wisdom givers, and she's well known all over the world. So it was really an honor to talk to her yesterday, but also an honor to interview her today. And she brought along two colleagues, so it was really kind of a working collaborative experience, and one where she also expressed a desire to work with me in the future, which is pretty darn exciting. The other thing is that she just really liked Carrie, and Carrie really liked her, and that was pretty cool. Carrie, by the way, has been working as my crew member, assistant. She's been setting up appointments and talking to people and pointing out people that I might want to take photographs of, and she's just been really active and may, if there's time, do some interviews herself. So a true crew member. The afternoon were more breakout sessions. I went to one on for water protectors.
Indigenous water protectors, and that was pretty interesting because it looked at protecting water from all different angles. You want good water, you have to have good tree systems. You want good water, then fish become the measure of the healthiness of that. Uh, and one of the people that come from a fishing community said their motto was healthy fish equal healthy people. Healthy people equal healthy water. And so, good breakout sessions all over. In between sessions, there were, I can't think of the stickball game, which looked just high intensity. It looked like a lot of fun. The meals here have been great, authentic. They only use foods that are sourced in the area and then cook them fresh. There's nothing froze. And so tonight for supper, I had elk meatloaf and deer stew and fry bread and greens, and it was just really cool. Did 3 interviews today. As I said, those were really great. I have 2 others tomorrow, and I also did do some clips of talks. And then in the evening, they had more stomp dance and then a concert. Yeah, and I interviewed somebody. Well, some of that was happening. So it's just been a long, active, great night. Um, these are really high intensity people who have been involved in working for the environment for most of their adult lives. So looking forward to tomorrow, but also sad about tomorrow because it's the last day. I really want to go home, but I also really want to stay here. And there's such a sense of community. It's really, you see all these different tents. You see all these people, different people from different First Nations, just all over the place. Everybody's brother and sister and aunt, auntie and uncle, and it's just, and grandparents. It's just wonderful. So that's it for it. I need to get to sleep. Talk to you later. Bye.
Hello, I'm Carl, and after 4 days here, I should say, my mother's people come from Minnesota, and before that, part of the family came across the river, across the ocean in the 1600s. But there are also branches of Cherokee and Sioux. On my father's side of the family comes from the land of fjords, mountains, waterfalls, and cleansing snow. And I live in the land of the St. Mary and the St. Joseph and the Continental Divide along the Little River. And this is the last day of the Protecting Mother Earth Conference. We started the day at the Sacred Fire. We faced east as the sun rose up over the mountain. There were drums, there were chantings, there were prayers. Yesterday, there were prayers from New Zealand, and before that, Guam. Today, it was Arizona, Minnesota, and here. We had sage. We did the smudging, but we also had tobacco in our left hand because it's connected to our heart, and we use that to offer our prayers to the fire. The embers, I should say the ceremony first was started by the family that brought the embers here from the land of the canoes in Washington, or West Coast. And they are now being put to sleep. So they'll slowly burn out. They've been watched continuously 24 hours a day by teams of people. They'll be put to sleep, and then the embers will be put in a jar and given to a family here. And then next year, when there is a conference, they will transport those embers to the next place for that sacred fire. The speakers here have covered all different issues, nuclear waste, nuclear power plants, incineration, broken treaties, core elements in the earth, extraction, poisoned rivers, um, loss of wildlife and biodiversity. And they did it from the perspective of a colonial system that works on extraction, exploitation, and everything is measured in profit. And they were somehow able to do that without my feeling that I was being pointed at, or that this is a group that hated white people. That just wasn't the case. It was a matter of the history of the last 500 years has not worked. It hasn't worked for the indigenous people, and it hasn't worked for Mother Earth. And it will take all of us to fix it. So today, we had our 2 meals were wonderful. Like I said, the food's all sourced here and cooked here, and it really is a Native American feast. It's just delicious. But anyway, today's been a day where they have taken all the action steps from all the workout sessions and plenaries, and they've gone over them with everybody, read them, corrected them. They will now vote on them. And while that doesn't sound particularly interesting like for me, but these will be the action steps that will guide the Indigenous Environmental Network for the next year. So they're extremely important. And they really address how do you interact with the United Nations? How do you interact with states, governments, provinces? How do the people in Brazil and Colombia and New Zealand interact with their governments? So that sovereignty is really sovereignty, and Earth begins to heal, that the water becomes clean, the air becomes clean, birds return. And so it's been a fantastic conference. Met so many interesting, welcoming people, had some very, very good interviews, enjoyed having this time with Carrie. And we're going to leave, and we have like 2 little tour stops to make, and then tomorrow we'll be on our way back to Indiana. So take care. Thanks for following us, and see you later.